Hi, everyone. We're
Hi.
here. This is Helen. Helen. Actually, I should also say I'm Megan Murphy, and this is the same drugs. I never remember to say that ever. Like, who is this? Helen, can you? What am I watching? Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes. So I'm Helen Stanyland, and I'm just I'm a normal woman. I'm a software developer, and I joined Twitter maybe about 10 years ago, when I was involved with the No More Page 3 campaign, which was to try and get the Sun to stop publishing topless photos on page 3 every day, as they had done for decades. And then I was there and I started following a load of excellent feminists. And I found Feminist Current and a number of other people. And I started to see that there was a sort of problem with this whole idea of TERFs. And I was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere near that. I don't, I'm not one of these, because these people will get vilified terribly because they're obviously awful in some way. And then obviously, I began to realize what was going on. And slowly, over the last 10 years, as I had more and more to say, and as my Twitter following grew, I got more and more targeted for people just did not want me speaking. In the usual way that happens to women. It first starts by, sort of low level, maybe sexual aggression, attempts at sexual humiliation. I mean, I think I have to point out at this point that I'd coined a question that worked quite well in a Twitter format for people who, like, mainly men, who I think unthinkingly would say, trans rights are human rights, which is, of course, perfectly reasonable. But I would ask a question that I think sort of distilled the potential problems with this approach, which was, asking about what do they believe around sort of male-born people with male genitals in women's changing rooms. That's the hardest defensible question. But this question,
Right. Like, essentially what you were saying is that, like, okay, so you say trans rights are human rights. You want trans people to be safe from violence and discrimination. But, like, when it comes down to it, are you actually comfortable with male-bodied people in
yes.
these private spaces with women and girls, change rooms, locker rooms, etc.?
And I thought it would be a way of just getting people to start to think, so that we could get the conversation to a place where we'd be, yes, okay, so here, I think this is reasonable, but maybe this not so much. But astonishingly, what happened is that people just did not want to address the question. But instead of addressing the question, there'd be massive amounts of vilification of me for asking the question in an attempt to silence. So as over the last few months, I got increasingly targeted. And in the end,
when you say targeted, do you mean by trans activists on Twitter, or you were being targeted by Twitter itself, like administrators, like the algorithm, like bots? Like...
No, trans activists on Twitter would target me and off. I did get somebody try and get me fired from work, and there was increasing attempts, and there was a very unpleasant, right towards the end, very unpleasant doxing attempt of me.
What happened? Like, when you say doxing, what do you mean? People, I find like people talk about doxing all the time, and it just ends up meaning like wildly different things.
My home address. So it was a pointer to where people could find my home address. Very clearly, it was my home address. I did take that to the police. The police came back immediately saying that they could do nothing about it. It was too hard because the person was anonymous. It took Twitter quite some time to take it down, and a number of people reporting, maybe 3 or 4 days for it to go in the end.
And so,
And
and did the person who doxed you, did they get banned from Twitter?
they did. But that account was just
Okay.
an anonymous account. And it was set up to do this doxing. So they understood exactly what they were doing. And in the end, inevitably, people just carried on reporting. People would call for mass reporting of me. Even some blue tick males would just call for mass reporting of me. And in the end, as inevitably it did stick, and I got banned.
So about like how long have you been talking about the gender identity issue online, like publicly on social media?
10 years.
Sorry?
10 years. So I started
10 years?
Yeah, yes. I
Whoa.
mean, just
I was like, this wasn't on my radar 10 years ago. I think
No,
I started talking about this in like 2016, maybe like the
I
end of
think
2016.
it was like, well, I was following Julie Bindel and people like that, and I could see this idea of a turf coming up. And so it was around then. Maybe, I mean, I joined 10 years ago, so it's possible that I saw it for a reasonable length of time before I was willing to say anything. I had a different account, an anonymous account that I was talking through. But in the end, I thought, this is ridiculous. This is perfectly rational conversation that women are allowed to have. So I took it over to my main account and got rid of the other.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because there's like this big debate about anonymity and feminism, right? That I don't think we need to get super into because people get really sensitive about it. Because I get why some women do have to talk about this anonymously because they'll lose their jobs and whatever. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like as long as we stay anonymous specifically because of this issue, then it reinforces the idea that what we're saying is somehow wrong or controversial or like harmful. I'm so hot, sorry. I'm so sweaty. I had to close all the windows in my place because it's so loud outside. Like there's like dogs and roosters and like giant trucks. So like I'm like in Mexico, like sweating, and it's like I might have to open the windows.
That's so cool though that you're in Mexico. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's the best decision I ever made to come and live here for a while. Canada was like getting worse and worse, like the restrictions and no end in sight, and it was like becoming so irrational. And like, anyway, this is a whole other topic, but I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here, I work online and we're literally not allowed to do anything in person. And in the past there's always been, I've been doing in-person events and there's meetings and there's panels and there's media stuff, and I was like, in my apartment, working all the time, never stopping work because I could just sit at my laptop and work all the time and not being around people and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, well, I should just leave and go do this somewhere more pleasant. Where I can be around strangers and have conversations with people. Like, anyway, how are things over there, by the way?
It's the same. We're in very, very lockdown at the moment. There's talk of March the 8th, the kids starting to go back to school, maybe a slight lifting of it. But since just before Christmas, we've been in very, very locked down. I mean, I'm quite lucky because I can work from home. So I have meetings with people from work, and I've got my kids here, and so it's quite a busy household. So I'm okay. Plus, I live in London on a sort of terrace street, so you can. When people walk past the window, you can open the window and desperately look out and say hello to somebody else that isn't a member of your immediate family. Yes.
Oh man, I was miserable. I was like losing my mind. I was so depressed and stressed out and anxious. And as soon as I got here, I was so happy and felt so much better. And I was just like, why didn't I just do this in November? Like, why didn't I just leave suffering?
But you did it. You did it. I think most people wouldn't. So it's
a lot of people are choked at me, and I'm like,
Well, it's true, and you've been through experiences that a lot of people haven't. I mean, imagine for you, you're like, I can't be here in Canada.
No, and I mean, I've been through my fair share of like stress over the past 2 years. It's been really awful, like just with all the protests and getting banned from Twitter and the threats and, you know, every single event that, as you know, every single event that I've
Yes.
done, you know, you get so many death threats and the media is awful and you're libeled so much that you can't even keep up. Like I can't even respond to it. I just don't, I would spend my whole life responding
Yes.
to it and correcting it, and it doesn't make any difference.
I'm afraid, yes, I'm afraid I saw, you know, I saw a Pink News article about you just a couple of days ago, and what was, you know, about your court case. But what was shocking to me, really shocking, well, first of all, the misrepresentation, but you know, you sort of expect that from Pink News, but it was the comments. So many men say good, 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 and I was thinking, how on earth do they think that it's progressive to say good, that women have been banned from political speech in the public square, the virtual public square, for the rest of their lives, and not only will their future words not be spoken online, everything they've said in the past has been erased. Like everything that you've said on Twitter is no longer there. This internet is forever thing is just rubbish, isn't it? I mean, you know, they can take it away at any point.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the same thing too, like under the Pink News article, which the headline was Meghan Murphy, anti-trans writer barred from Twitter for calling trans women men, loses court battle to overturn ban. There was another article that was particularly bad too at them called TERFs Don't Have the Right to Be Transphobic on Twitter, court rules. So they libel me right in the headline because, you know, like I wasn't actually banned for saying anything transphobic. You were banned for saying anything transphobic. Like, but the things that both of us were suspended for were just essentially truths or like asking reasonable questions. So all these men who are cheering on my ban, you know, men who tried to get you banned, you know, I don't know if they realize, but what literally, like I'm not being hyperbolic, but they're celebrating the ban of the truth. Like
yes.
What's happened now is we can't speak the truth. We can't say what is true online, and you know, so much of our existence is online now. Like it's not reasonable anymore for people to say, oh, it's just Twitter, oh, it's just social media. It's like, this is where we have conversations, this is where I work, you know, my work is all online. Like I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, like I produce media, like
totally agree. I mean, I was saying the same thing, you know, even this isn't 5 years ago or sort of 10 years ago where Twitter was just sort of a playground somewhere where you could go and just sort of make some friends and talk about your little corner. This is real life now. We do, you know, there's no real sense of going online like there used to be, where you'd put your dial-up modem on and then you'd wait for a couple of minutes, go make a cup of tea whilst it connected. We're constantly online. Our phones are online. Everything is online. There is no going online. It's part of your life. And this is what I was thinking, you know, saying, oh, it's social media. They're allowed to do what they want. And I was thinking, well, I guess they are right now. You know, Twitter are allowed to do what they want, but there has to come a point where I think that they will not. Surely this cannot be allowed to continue, because you know, they have a monopoly, but they have a monopoly out of necessity, really, because everyone wants to go where everyone else is. You know, it's not ever. I can't see it ever being devolved because everyone wants to be in the same place. So at some point, I mean, to say,
I don't think that I don't know if anything's going to change. Like I mean, essentially what the Court of Appeal ruled in my case was that Twitter is allowed to do what they want. They ruled that Twitter was allowed to ban or suspend anyone they want for no reason at all. They don't even have to say the reason. They can remove any content they want. And also not take responsibility for any of the content published on their platform because of Section 230. So they're using Section 230 to avoid accountability for, you know, things like, you know, pornography, violence, prostitution, which is on, you know, their platform constantly. You know, it's not their responsibility, Section 230, but at the same time, they're acting like a publisher, and they're determining what can be published on their platform, and they're saying, no, women can't have conversations about gender identity, they can't have conversations about biology and material reality. They've taken down, and it's not just this issue, like they've decided what people can say on Twitter about like COVID or Biden, like they banned the president of the US. Like I can't believe that, and I can't believe anybody is celebrating it. I think that's crazy. I don't know what you think about that.
I thought
Trump's ban.
It was lip service. I mean, he'd been there for 4 years. To take him down a couple of days before the end of his presidency, I thought was cowardly. They either should have said, yes, we're not, this is not acceptable, or this is acceptable. Taking him down 2 days beforehand, I thought was just ridiculous. It was pathetic.
It is ridiculous, but it's also like I think that the reason that they took him down is troubling, because they banned Trump from Twitter for, I think, like they were claiming that he incited violence, which is essentially accusing him of thought crime, because he didn't actually literally incite violence with his words. And so Twitter has taken it upon themselves to guess at what Trump meant and what he thinks, which, whether or not like you like Trump or not, or agree with him or whatever, like, or think that he was innocent in terms of what he tweeted, I think is irrelevant, because I just feel so uncomfortable with Twitter getting to decide what people think and whether or not what they think and what they mean is good or bad.
Yes. I mean, to be honest, I think I slightly disagree with you on Trump. I mean, I think the line, that I've been thinking quite a lot about what Twitter shouldn't do. I don't think that Twitter should particularly be responsible for the content. I think Twitter should be treated like a phone company where people can say whatever they want. They're simply the platform. And if something is against the law in a particular country, then they should sort that out. I think police and et cetera, they need to change in the way that they deal with things that are online, because they're woefully behind. The Trump thing, I mean, they did storm the Capitol where some people died. So I actually didn't. I thought that he had incited violence, and I was kind of okay with it. It was, however, there is that line, because for me, I was saying this the other day. People say to me all the time, "You incite violence with your words." I think there has to be a pretty direct link before you can say this person has incited violence by talking about women's changing rooms. It can't be like a fifth order effect that people are sort of saying, well, and then this, and then this, and then some men will do it because some feminists said something.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, we don't need to super dwell on the Trump thing. I mean, I think that it seemed clear to me that group of people had been planning this long before Trump tweeted anything about them. So I think it would have happened. I'm 99% certain it would have happened regardless of whether or not he tweeted that. So I think that point is debatable. But I don't think anybody should be banned from Twitter unless they actually literally incite violence. Like if there's an actual literal violent threat, if they break the law, but all this like interpretation of, ideology, politics, like, I mean, I know that I've talked about this a lot, but what I was actually banned for, and, there was a bunch of stuff referenced in the ruling. And a few of the things referenced were some tweets that Twitter had made me take down, but that I wasn't banned for, that were in reference to this person who calls themselves Haley Heartless and or Lisa Crut. And this is like a Vancouver, they refer to themselves as a transsexual dominatrix. So they don't actually refer to themselves as a woman. So I was referring to this person as he. They've also publicly referred to themselves as a eunuch, so they identify themselves as a eunuch, which is obviously a male, right? So I don't.
Yes.
I mean, how would you? How is anyone supposed to know? Like, I'm supposed. The same thing happened with Yaniv. Like, how am I? I know.
That's how you're supposed to know. And but how does it matter? How does it matter? This is the point. It doesn't matter. And I don't think that anyone certainly the people who reported my tweets, it was nothing to do with them feeling attacked or upset or anything like that. It's obviously it's a game. It's a game, and for that they won that one. But they were always going to. Because women, we know this on Twitter. This is not something, I see them celebrating. I saw so many celebratory. I think it was the same with you. Yay, she's gone. The penis lady. They used to call me the penis lady because I would say the word penis in my tweets in that question. This is what I was saying about the low level sort of harassment. It would start with people I would just get tweet after tweet after tweet of people saying penis. And I'm thinking, what does this mean? It's the most astonishing thing.
Maybe they should be banned. That's gross.
Well, yes. I mean, I did. I reported a number of those. So not that I particularly cared, because I could have blocked them, but it was an interesting experiment. Nobody ever got banned or even had to take any tweets down that were sort of reference, just sort of shouting at me. Somebody did a book cover. I mean, people would go to quite a lot of effort. I mean, in a way, it meant that the question really it was a difficult thing and they really didn't like it. So, in a way, it was quite good because you think, all right, well, this question it's sort of powerful to get to the point. But people, so that's how it started, sort of that low level sort of sexual harassment, attempts of sexual humiliation, I think, by sort of people would say, oh my God, this woman's tweeted penis sort of 300 times or 3,000 times in the last month. And some chap said he was a blue ticked account saying, oh, I'm a gay man and I don't talk about penis that much. And I thought it was such an interesting sort of like confluence of how women are treated. For the idea that a woman talking about saying the word penis in a political
I'm tired. I don't want to hear the word. I'm like, well, now the video has been demonetized like 800 times over. Thanks.
So let's go with that. But the attempt to suggest that political speech is actual, sort of obsession with sex. But then on top of that, the idea that men can say it. But if a woman says it, then it's just dreadful and is worthy of mocking and humiliation. So there was a lot of that going on. But for me, I mean, I could just block these people. I'm perfectly happy to just mute them all and block them. I don't think that's a bannable offence. In fact, I actually think that it's something that's worth highlighting. As a feminist, I think it's worth saying, look, this is how men are attempting to put women down and silence them, etc. But Twitter didn't care anyway.
But also, it's like, okay, so if these people are going to pretend as though what we're saying is like attacking people or threatening people, which I've never threatened anybody on Twitter, ever. I've never attacked anybody on Twitter. I'm sure I've mocked people on Twitter, which is what everybody does on Twitter. But I'm sure I've not been nice from time to time, gasp. But if I've literally been threatened and insulted and mocked and lied about constantly on Twitter, and it doesn't I'm just used to it. This is how Twitter is.
This is being a woman on Twitter. Yes.
I mean, who cares? I don't care. These people, there's some threats that I have actually been afraid of, and there's some individuals who I'm actually afraid of who seemed unhinged, but they're not your random Twitter user who's calling me a bitch or something. I don't care. And so the notion that me discussing biology or saying, you know, one of the things that I was banned for was literally the statement, men are not women, though. It wasn't, Twitter keeps lying about this, and people and the media has lied about it also. They keep saying that I was saying that about a person, like that I was calling somebody who identified as a woman a man, but that I wasn't. I was just, it was a neutral statement as part of a thread that, and it wasn't a response to a person. Like I remember the whole conversation in detail, but I have all the screenshots on my computer. Like I've looked at them a million times over to see if there's some way they could have been interpreted that way. And I was like, no, that's not what happened. I just said men aren't women, which is a true fact. Like, and that's supposedly like harmful to people or threatening to people, but it's okay to like send women like pornography and threaten them with rape and violence all the time. Like, it's like, if I can handle that, surely you can handle me saying men aren't women. Like, God, like what a joke. And they don't feel threatened by it. No one actually feels threatened by it. No, they just want to shut us up.
Yes. And it works. I mean, it does work because, you know, people now, I mean, for me, I thought there's things I can do. I could stop this. If I want to keep my Twitter account and keep my friends and my network, I could stop saying what I'm saying. But honestly, the kind of the point of my Twitter account, I mean, the friends I made were great. But the point of my Twitter account was, in fact, to highlight the problems. And in fact, it's an interesting progression of what happened. My Twitter account to begin with was about feminism. And then as the years went on, I realized that, you know, well, we all realized that feminism was virtually impossible to talk about because there was this issue in the way. Who was allowed to talk about feminism? You know, who are the people who need feminism? And then it's gone even sort of one degree further now, sort of another order, which is now we're having to talk about, are we even allowed to talk about who is allowed to talk about feminism? It's the time and emotional energy that women are having to spend. It's quite a clever thing for men to have sort of hit on in order to try and sort of silence women.
Yes, totally. I mean, what I know is that if we let this stand, because even like I've seen like lots of feminists online, you know, talking shit about me, like, oh, Megan's whining about this Twitter thing, so you got banned from Twitter, like, big deal, who cares? And it's like, it's not just about me being banned from Twitter, it's about so much more than that. And this is the end of feminism. Like, if we're not allowed to talk about these things, there's no such thing as feminism. It can't exist. It's not just women's sex-based rights can't exist. It's like, we literally cannot have a feminist movement if we're not allowed to talk about women's bodies and the differences between men and women, and talk about why, you know, gender and sex aren't the same thing, and to name male predators. Like, yes. At the end of the day, what I was banned for was for naming a male predator who Twitter protected, a predator who was identifying with his male name and his male pronouns on social media. Like, they're lying when they're saying, oh, you know, like I called him and he identified. It's like, nobody knew. Like, he was identifying as all sorts. He's not transition. Like, there's no possible way. That rule didn't exist when I was banned. There was no rule against misgendering or dead naming. So even if I had wanted to follow their rules, it would have been impossible for me to, because that rule didn't exist and I didn't know it was a rule. Like, I didn't know I was breaking rule. They still haven't told me that's the rule that I broke. I've just read it in the media that that's the rule I broke. They just sent me this like form response saying hateful conduct and then this specific tweet. And I was like, what? Like, what is the hateful part of? I didn't say anything hateful. I referred to this person by name and with a male pronoun, which he was also doing online. Like,
yes,
I'm gonna have an aneurysm.
Honestly, people, if you weren't part of it, if you weren't part of the conversation, I mean, it's no surprise that people from the outside look and say, what? Because it makes no sense. It's so fantastical that I can see why people are like, there's bound to be more to it, because that can't be the case. But it is the case. It is absolutely the case. The astonishing silencing and the astonishing skewing of the rules. There's an absolute two-tier system now on Twitter where males can say a huge amount to women without getting banned, and women have to be so careful. Again, this is something I was just saying the other day, that for a little while Twitter gave us the freedom of talking as equals, rather than in a physical area where women have always had to be careful of not antagonizing men in an actual face-to-face space where women have moderated their voices and their language. It was egalitarian. We were able to join the conversation as equals, one tweet a response, a tweet a response. But that's gone. Again, women are having to moderate their speech and their tone and keep sort of calm and not get sort of overexcited and angry, because they'll get banned.
Well, and we don't even know what we can and cannot say. Like, that's the trick, is that it's like, Twitter is literally legally now allowed to ban people for whatever they want and not be accountable, not say why. It doesn't matter if they've broken the terms or rules or not. But like, it's that you don't know, like, what you don't know what it is that you might say that might be the thing you get banned for. And I mean, when you've invested so much in building an audience here and, building a conversation, if this is your living, like, it's like, this is the platform where journalists are. Journalists don't operate on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, not in the same way at all.
No.
And Twitter created the platform for that. So, we invest all this time and energy into building an audience and having these conversations just for them to randomly kind of take you out. I just wanted to say a couple of things quickly, just because I want to respond to some of the comments in the live stream. So somebody was saying, like, get Joe Rogan to cover this. And I just want to say, like, I've emailed Rogan's booker a number of times to cover this case. And we did go back and forth about it back in 2018 when this first happened. And we almost set up an interview and then it didn't happen. So now that this appeal, that I've lost this appeal, I really think, like, I'm frustrated. I really like Rogan and I think he's done a good job of covering this, and I'm glad that he's been critical, and I'm glad that he talked to Abigail Shrier, but he never, there are so many men out there with really large platforms who aren't supporting us, and so we're being disappeared. They've all maintained their platforms, like people like Brett Weinstein, who I really, really like and respect a lot. Obviously people like Benjamin Boyce, who is my friend and I really like a lot. Like, I'm not trying to diss these people. Ben Shapiro, like conservative commentators, like Ricky Gervais, like, there's other celebrity men who've tweeted essentially similar things that we've tweeted and kept their platforms, keep growing their audience, are profiting from this. Zuby, again, who is somebody I like and respect, but who has said essentially the same things that I have, and his platform blew up and he's making tons of money, and we're all being erased and silenced, and they're moving forward without us. And I want, like, those men particularly who have power, who aren't going to get banned, who aren't going to lose their platforms, who aren't going to lose money, to actually talk to us and cover us, and not just let us be disappeared like this, and not let the media call us transphobic. Like, I'm like, fuck off. I'm not transphobic. Like, I refuse this. I refuse to be referred to in this way over and over and over. You
should refuse it.
Yeah, like, and
yes.
how
and
they're getting away with libel every day, like
every day. Yes, I thought that when I got the ban email, it was mainly about, you're not allowed to incite violence, or if your account is specifically to harass and incite violence. I'm like, I'm the mildest person on Twitter. I never even swore, not once. Well, maybe once. But I never swore. I was always quite calm and rational, and quite amusing. If in response to people's unpleasantness, I would sort of highlight it and sort of make light of it, because I think that's the best way. I was never rude, and to be told that, in a sort of, and it is an automated email, with all of the things. And I'm like, how does this tweet even fit in there? It doesn't fit. That's the thing. But more about these men, what I also wanted to say was they understand this issue. They have heard about this issue because feminists have spent years and years of their lives raising this issue up. We spent so many years just telling people again and again, fighting against it by ourselves and trying to raise it. And honestly, I remember I used to sort of chat with my mates at work at lunchtime, and I would say, this is happening. And they would accuse me of nut picking, arguing with the sort of nuttiest people on the internet. But as time has gone on, they're like, yeah, you're right. This is a problem, and it's growing. And the reason that people have heard of it is because we spent so much time fighting against it and raising the issue up. And so you're right. These men really should. They should take you with them. Help.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's exactly like nobody would know about this issue or be talking about it if feminists, like us and Julie Bindel and, Posey and Janice Raymond and all of these women who I'm not going to remember their names, so sorry. But force this well, I just feel bad. I don't want to be leaving.
Yeah, no. That's, you can't. As soon as you start naming people, it's like, oh no.
I shouldn't have even started. Venice, so on and so forth. But that we forced this conversation. We had to force it. Nobody opened the doors to us. Like the venues canceled on us. Like the media refused to cover it. And then suddenly, it's like these guys can just jump into the conversation and be like, oh yeah, men aren't women. And it's like, yeah, fuck you. I was banned from Twitter for saying that. And I have something to lose. I don't make that much money. These celebrity men, they're going to be fine financially. They'll never be broke. If I lose my platform, that's it. I can't work. I'm broke. I'm done. And I also want to say, Benjamin Boyce has totally used his platform to platform women like us, and he has taken risks. So I don't want I see men to be dissed or whatever. And Zuby's platform, me too. But it's we are being disappeared. I feel like I'm being disappeared.
Well, you are. I think you've done a great job of sort of picking up the pieces. You've got your YouTube channel, and there's Feminist Current, and you've still got a platform to talk, but it's not the same. It isn't the same. And for me, I'm not a journalist. I don't require Twitter for my income, but I've spent 10 years. It's a valuable commodity. A 10-year-old Twitter account with, say, 10,000 followers. It's valuable. It's time consuming. I've put effort into this. Friendships, networks. It's important. It's part of your life. And somebody has taken it away and said, you can never have it again. It's a record.
Well, and in principle, it's wrong. In principle, it's wrong that they would ban you for what you said and what you were talking about. And just for people who didn't tune in right at the beginning, can you, because people are asking in the comments, can you explain what the Staniland, am I saying your last name right?
Yes,
Staniland?
Yes, Staniland.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh my God.
The question.
What's the question?
The question was it's simple. It fits into a tweet, and it sort of encapsulates the problem. It's the hardest defensible stance, I think. It's for people who suggest that there's no issue really, that it's just women being bigots. It's, do you believe that a male-born person with a penis should have the right to yes, too late now, I've ruined it, should have the right to undress in a communal changing room where women and girls are undressing? Because communal changing rooms exist. Women and girls, mothers, children, they use them all of the time. Well, pre-COVID, use them all of the time, taking their kids swimming, etc. Other women, no problem. If you're a bit uncomfortable, you change under a towel. It's it's not a problem. It's been the social norm for decades in all countries, well, certainly in the US, the UK. And this question is, it's difficult to answer if the answer isn't, no, of course not. If you're slightly, if you are sort of espousing the idea that there's no issue here, it does make it slightly difficult to answer. Lots of people would answer no. Hardly anyone would say yes. Most people would say, right, stop asking the question.
Yeah, right. I mean, so I wonder what you think we should do. Like, is there any, I know you've appealed. I mean, do you think there's any recourse? Like, how do you think we should go about, because I don't want to let Twitter off the hook for this. They should be accountable for what they're doing, and they have such a huge influence on culture, on the news, on these conversations. Like I said before, like this is, we can't do feminism if we've decided that misgendering is hate speech. We can't. It's not possible.
No, we can't.
And any feminist who pretends as though we can move forward is delusional. You know, like if we can't talk about men and women and male and female bodies and so on and so forth.
But what I see happening is people or women, they are silencing themselves, aren't they? I mean, we know that, you know, the whole chilling effect. We know this is part of it. You pick on one woman and you target her, like, you know, like me, you get targeted, and it sends a signal to all other women. You know, first of all, you get your threats where people are shouting penis at you, or then there's the doxing. There's the sort of constant quote tweeting, the mocking, etc., etc. You know, escalation. And I would get so many women sort of messaging me saying, I don't know how you put up with it. It's so stressful. It must be so difficult. And you know, I'd get direct messages, women saying, I wish I could say something, but, you know, my job, etc., etc. I can't, but I just wanted to send you support, which I have to say was lovely, despite the fact that, you know, I wish women could speak out under their own names. As you say, I mean, I can completely understand why they couldn't, you know, but ironically, I can't speak out under my own name ever again. You know, if I was to, you know, just get a throwaway phone and get another Twitter account, you know, which I could probably do for sort of probably maybe a few months before somebody would clock me and get me thrown off. Couldn't do it under my own name, which is interesting, isn't it? Because I think it would be nice, and it would possibly be a better idea. I think it was Tim Berners-Lee, didn't he say that he wished, if he could go back and do anything differently, he wished he would have been able to prevent anonymity on the internet. You know, and I know people say, but if, you know, but women shouldn't, you know, can't be, they have to, and of course that is true. However, if all of the men were also not anonymous, then I suspect people would behave a little bit better. And so maybe fewer women would need to be anonymous, but there's still the need, I'm afraid.
Right. I mean, if everybody had been talking about this openly all along, then there wouldn't be the need for anonymity. I don't think that people should be allowed to be anonymous on the internet, honestly. You know, you should be accountable for what you say. And you can't demand that people take you seriously if nobody knows who you are. Like, there has to be some, you know, I don't know if I'm saying this in the right way, but there does have to be some kind of risk, because otherwise you can just spew whatever you want online. You can lie, you can threaten, like,
yeah, you can
misrepresent, like, and like, if you're not anonymous, it does force you to be more careful about what you say, which is a good thing. Like, you should be careful about what you say.
Yes. I mean, I certainly was. I would, you know, I was proud of what I was able to say. I felt very lucky to have worked in an environment where, you know, you argue with people quite a lot, because, you know, people have forceful opinions and diverse opinions as well. And it's a sort of logical environment. So, you solve problems every day. So I felt very fortunate to, in quite a lucky position in Twitter in that I had experience with arguing with sort of forceful men in the past. So I was perfectly happy with everything I said. But as you say, I would never swear. I would never be rude or shout in capital letters, particularly because because I'm not anonymous. And I felt that I would be accountable. And I am accountable to my words, except it turns out that all my words have now been erased, completely erased. 10 years has been erased. It's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret anything I said at all, and I still looked back and read them over many times over. I'm like, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong with anything I said. Even, the stuff prior to the tweets that I was banned for, the men aren't women though, the tweet about Yaniv, that stuff around Lisa Krutt that I mentioned before / Haley Heartless. I mean, the stuff that I was tweeting was in defense of Vancouver Rape Relief, because Krutt had gone after Rape Relief and was trying to get them defunded. He was trying to pressure BC labor unions to pull their support. So I was so mad because these were women that I supported and allied with, and this is, one of the only, women's shelters and transition houses in Vancouver. It's the only women-only one, and they were constantly being attacked. And so I was defending them, and I was, calling out this person publicly and saying what they were literally doing, like that. It wasn't a secret that this was happening. This person was openly advocating in BC labor to have them blacklisted, and had an activist who was advocating for poor Chinese seniors living in Chinatown and struggling to find housing. He had her, Yuli Chen, deplatformed from a conference simply because she had sort of vague ties to Vancouver Rape Relief, and I think because she had liked a feminist current article on Twitter, clicked the like button. So that's what I was talking about. And Twitter interprets that as a somehow transphobic attack. And you know what? It's the amount of women that I've defended over the years. I have always defended women who are under attack on this issue, even if I didn't like them, even if we didn't agree on anything. And suddenly, sorry to sound petty, but it's a lot of those women have still kind of played it safe, or, they've distanced themselves from me, or they're, mad at me because I don't have pure politics. I say what I really think, and sometimes it's not exactly what everybody else thinks. And it's
okay.
My livelihood's being ruined. I lost my platform for defending you from these attacks. So, come on.
But what's incredible is that whole Vancouver Rape Relief, it's still going on. People still attacking. And again, it's that sort of meta thing, isn't it? They, instead of expending all their energy on just desperate women in need, they're having to spend some of their time, quite a lot of their time, just advocating for their own existence, defending their own existence, to spend time helping desperate women in need. It's the most dreadful thing, and it's happening, and it's, once you see it, it's so obvious. And as you say, there are so many people who are just turning a blind eye to it because we're women. They're women.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, this is an organization that should be able to focus entirely just on helping women. These really are the most marginalized women. These are the battered women, these are the prostituted women, these are the indigenous women, these are the homeless women, these are the poor women. If a woman is going to a transition house, it's because she has nowhere else to go. Women don't want to go to transition houses. Nobody wants to go to a
transition house. No, absolutely not. I can't even imagine what going to a transition house would be like. I mean, I can't imagine having to being in that sort of desperate situation where that's your only choice. But if it is your only choice, then thank God there's somebody there for you, that you can go there. But people don't want them to be there because, well, we know why. It's honestly, when you say it out loud, when you say it like that, I get overwhelmed sometimes with the anger and the hatred, and I do think,
well, that's
like
what I
we
was
said,
reading
I
about.
think it's
I
a
was
game,
overwhelmed
but it's
with
also,
anger.
and it's a game, isn't it? It's a game for them. It's for likes and points and wanting to win. It's
It's a
wanting to
power
win against
move. It's
women.
like to test and
Yes.
see how much power they have, like how much they can get other people on board. It's also like it's attention seeking, it's validation, it's like likes, retweets, it's building a platform for no reason. Like people, they don't need these platforms to make money. They just use these platforms to spout off and attack other people, particularly women. But it's like,
Yes.
The irony is that, Vancouver Rape Relief actually is dealing with the most marginalized women, and
Yes.
they're being attacked for supposedly discriminating against a marginalized group, i.e.
Yes.
trans people, and it's like these people who go on and on and on about, like name dropping like POC, trans, queer, BIPOC, like just, saying all these terms that signify marginalization, whether or not these terms actually represent marginalized groups. And then they're trying to destroy one of the only places that is actually doing something real to try to support these women who, again, like,
yes.
if you had money, you wouldn't need to go to a transition house, you would move. Like, you go to a transition house because you can't afford to just like put down $1,000 deposit on an apartment because you have nowhere else to go. Like,
yes.
It's crazy to me.
It is, and it is. It does make me so angry because it is a game. It is power. The people who are playing this game, they have no need for transition houses. I mean, they just don't. It's about not wanting women to have something of their own.
Right.
There's again, this is something I was thinking about. People say, women thrown off Twitter. Well, they can go elsewhere. But that's the well, you want your spaces by yourself. Well, now you can have your spaces. Go and talk in your own corner. But it's obviously the difference between being forced and marginalized and choosing to have a space where you can talk without the oppressor, shall we say?
Well, and when I defend women-only spaces, I'm not defending it for me. I'm not like, I don't want to be in women-only groups. Like, I'm not in a women's prison. Like, I don't need to go to a transition house, luckily. Like, I'm not defending me. Like, no. I'm okay. Like, I'm defending people who are more women who are more vulnerable than me. Like, I'm not a pro athlete. Like, no. Like, I'm not trying to win a weightlifting competition. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really not about me, and it's never been about me. It's always been about defending other women, and in particular, like the most marginalized women who don't have a platform, women who don't have a voice, women who have like no alternative, nowhere else to go, and saying, oh, you can go somewhere else. It's like, well, where can I go? I can go to Instagram, and then what? Like, if it's okay to ban me on Twitter, then it's also okay to ban me everywhere else, and just like I said,
I mean, this is something
disappear me. Like,
this is something that I've seen, and this is a problem with Twitter, and it's a big problem with Twitter using this idea of hate speech. There's this hateful conduct, because that gets conflated to hate speech, and then people try and conflate that to actual hate speech, as in against the law hate speech in some countries. And I've also seen people try and get people banned from other platforms on the back of that they've been banned from Twitter. Oh, they were banned from Twitter from hate speech. Why have you got them on your platform? And it's insidious, and it is a real danger, because you can quite see that this could happen. I mean, I think this did happen to Trump. The social media platforms, they all said, well, we're all banning him. Like we said, he's an extreme example, but this would not be at all a surprise to me if people didn't say, well, let's just make it easy. You've banned from there, so why should we host you on our platform? It's very, very dangerous, and people are using it in order to try and silence women. And I still can't understand the short-sightedness. I mean, at some point, the conversation might change, and they could be the ones saying the wrong thing. I would like to think that I would not be saying, that's great, they're not allowed to be here anymore. I mean, it's possible that in the past that I might have, because I hadn't really thought it through. I suspect now I'd be like, no, but because, I've seen it firsthand. It's ridiculous.
I know. I mean, it's unfortunate to say, because I never really did defend free speech all that strongly before, because in Canada, people just don't take it seriously. So I'm a Canadian, I'm also a leftist, and we totally take free speech for granted in a way that Americans don't. And, I have a lot of respect for these Americans who really cling to their freedoms, because Canadians are just like, oh, yeah, take them. We don't need anything. Give us more rules. Yeah. And it's idiot. It's like they're moving into this Orwellian world. It's like, have none of you read 1984? Because you think that you're doing the right thing and you're protecting everybody from hate, and really you're creating this authoritarian system. And I feel bad that I didn't defend more free speech more strongly before, and I'll acknowledge that once I went through this, I started paying more attention, and it wasn't just because of what happened to me. It was because when I went through this, I started connecting with people who weren't just leftists. So people on all sides of the political spectrum, and started paying more attention to what they were saying and their arguments around free speech and why it mattered. And I was like, oh yeah, this does matter. Whoops.
Yes. I think that's one of, I think a good takeaway for me is to have realized that actually the left isn't pure. They're not pure.
Sorry, you cut out. The left isn't what? I didn't hear it.
Pure.
What did you say?
Is it pure? It's my accent. Pure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anger, misogyny, and just where it's all sort of cult-like, and you're bad, good versus evil. It's quite childlike. It's you're good or you're bad, and you can't be in between. There's no nuance. Actually connecting with people who, to be fair, I through work as well, and also just through life in general, you meet people who maybe are conservatives, who it turns out become your great friends. You don't necessarily like to talk about politics around the dinner table unless you're really pissed, but they're your.
Who wants to talk about politics all the time anyway?
Parents, but they're your kids' friends' parents, and it turns out they're actually really nice. I think that's been a good thing. That's obviously becoming a grown-up is gives you that, but also I think this has given me that a slightly different perspective, talking to people that I might not necessarily have connected with before, and I think that's all to the good, but it's dreadful circumstances to be in it under. It would be nice if we could all just still talk amongst ourselves as well, but we're not allowed anymore.
I know. I wish that people understood that it's not just beneficial politically to talk to different people and to talk to people who disagree with you politically, because God forbid you learn something or you change your mind or feel like, oh, maybe there's a better way. But I just find it personally very fulfilling. I like connecting with people, and I like that you can connect. So even last night, I was talking to this guy who's a gay man, who, I don't want to reveal too much about him, but he's involved in the queer trans community. Let's just say that. And I told him a bit about what I did, and he was like, "Oh yeah, no, I totally get this. I hate how this is all happening." If you talk to people one-on-one, you learn that those people understand where you're coming from, and that you have lots of things in common, and that you're both human, and that you don't hate each other. And you stop, essentially dehumanizing people and turning people into these one-dimensional figures where all they are is
Yes.
transphobic, or all they are is a trans activist, or however you label people. And same thing, left versus right. Like, it's like, someone in the comments earlier when I mentioned Joe Rogan was like, oh, Joe Rogan is a right-wing man. And I was like, wait, he's not right-wing at all. He's very liberal. But also, like, I don't care. Who cares? Like, I don't have anything against right-wing people or I like right-wing people and conservative people. I have more respect for conservative men than I do left-wing men these days because of what the left has done to us and what these men are allowing to happen to us, or even encouraging and supporting and cheering on,
Yes, I think the cheering on is what's absolutely shocked me. It shocked me to the core that the cheering on of the silencing of women. It's unconscionable. It's unforgivable. And it's almost, but not quite, unbelievable. But it isn't quite unbelievable, is it? Because we've seen it so much. I mean, this is why we've got feminism. This is why we started talking in the first place, because of male-dominated society, and it's just come right back around. They whatever the conversation is, they don't really want us to have it.
Well, and it does, like, I don't really like just writing things off as misogyny because I feel like it's oversimplistic. But when you look at these men who consider themselves to have every single right opinion that you possibly could have in the world, they're the ones who are like working towards social justice, and everybody else is like a capitalist or a neoliberal or like a fascist or whatever. And they seem really joyful about the hatred directed at us. It's like, what is this? What is this if not hatred of women? Like, I don't know what else to call it. Like, and conservative men don't behave in that way. Sorry. Like, I mean, some do, I'm sure, but this isn't where I'm getting that from. I've never been really attacked by conservative men over anything, even like in my, whole career as a feminist, which was mostly, like bigging up like socialism and Marxism and like fighting.
Yes, that's right.
And, like fighting against prostitution, pornography and stuff like that.
Yes. But this is how I joined the conversation, on Feminist Current. It was that first publication that I found that, as a woman, reading Beneath the Line was instructive. It was purposeful, wasn't it? The article would be there to sort of generate the conversation, and the conversations were so good. I learned so much from it. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
But it's such a shame that. I know Feminist Current is still going and I still read it, but it's such a shame that the conversation has shifted to so many notches. To are women even allowed to speak? I mean, how are we even here? It's the most astonishing thing to me. Incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels like, it feels like in Canada, at least this, and COVID has had a really horrible impact on feminism and the feminist movement. I mean, all of these lockdowns that people are supporting, you can see how deeply the feminist movement has been impacted because we haven't been able to meet in person and we've all been forced online, and online is like such a toxic place to have these conversations and to organize and so on and so forth.
But there's more. I've also noticed that there's so many women have kind of dropped themselves out of the conversation because they're simply looking after children. They're spending all of their time looking after children. So a lot of feminists that I would, look to for just sort of constant sort of content, they've kind of absented themselves. They've had to, because they're the ones looking after the kids again.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, because all the kids are home. Everyone's home. And but it's, we can't really the only way that we forced the conversation in Canada was by organizing these events. And so the media was forced to cover the events because of the protests. The media refused to cover us and what we were saying and talk to us, but they did cover the protests, and it forced the debate, into the public realm. It forced people to acknowledge that there was a debate and there were women who were saying rational things, and that they had concerns. And now that we can't do in-person debates, it's like they're just moving on without us, and there's nothing we can do because the politicians don't listen. Like we have a Liberal Party in power right now, and in BC, a leftist party. So the Liberal Party and the leftist party, the NDP, they won't even have a conversation with us. They won't acknowledge we exist. They won't talk to us. They won't hear us. Some of the conservative politicians will, but they're not in power right now. The media will not acknowledge us or speak to us at all unless, again, forced. And so we just can't get anywhere in Canada. And I feel like, and already in Canada, when I first started talking about this issue in Canada, there weren't really any other feminists talking about it. Like there was nothing going on. Like I felt like pretty much on my own. And there's more groups who have organized since, which is awesome. But all we can do is say things on the internet, and we're being banned from the internet. Like it's so messed up, and it's so scary. And people should be way more freaked out about this than they are. Like nobody on the left, or not nobody, but so many on the left and in feminism don't seem to be concerned at all about big tech and big tech censorship. And it's like, don't you realize that they've ensured that this is the only space that you can talk about anything, and then they can just pick you off and then you're gone?
Yeah.
That's it.
Frightening is the word. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's more than just annoying and wrong. It is frightening, and it's got worse over the last few years. As like we've already sort of covered, as more and more people are constantly online. Online is the place to talk, especially with COVID. Everything is online. Like everything is happening online. It's completely and utterly frightening. And I don't think people have woken up to the fact yet. Again, we're early adopters out of necessity.
Yeah. Those of us who are incapable of shutting up. my disease that I have of not being capable of not saying everything that I think. I don't know how other people do it, because I have to. like you don't say things that you think. Like that must feel terrible.
Well, it's good for us that you do. Maybe not so much for you.
Too. Can I ask you, we'll log off soon because it's been like an hour and I know it's probably getting late for you, but so can I ask you what impact this has had on your personal life, like speaking out about the gender identity issue?
I have been very fortunate in that I've got a group of friends who I've been talking boring for years with this. The ones that were, at the beginning, maybe sort of five or 6 years ago, would not be particularly interested. We'd have a few arguments, but then the conversation would move on. I kind of sort of left that, and the ones who were would take a sort of an interest because they are more argumentative types, quite like to take a contrary position, and we'd argue about feminism anyway. They've actually completely come over to my side, not because I've won them over, but because it's obvious, it's everywhere. And it's, the point with this argument is that it's facts against hyperbole, isn't it? It's facts against anger. And, we do know the facts of biology, and they haven't changed. It's how people talk about them and react to them and want to pretend that it's not doesn't exist or has changed. So that's been okay. There's only been a couple of friends, I think, who have sort of drifted away, maybe. I used to argue with them about it a lot. We would still be friends in other areas, but in the end, it got too much, it drifted away. I mean, it's possibly that I was just a bit too boring about it because, at some point it was just so much that it was so obvious to me, and most people didn't care or hadn't seen it. At least now the conversation has moved on to, I think I said this the other day on Glyna's podcast, that I have some friends, the ones that maybe sort of 5 or 6 years ago, I'd be trying to get them engaged and they'd be a bit bored. And they talked to me before Christmas saying, oh my God, did you see this was happening? And we were talking to our other friends, and we're all completely in agreement. And I'm like, I'm really glad you've seen it, but I mean, you're my great friends, and I've been talking about this for years. Where have you been? That was an incredibly long-winded reply to "I've been okay." I mean, quite frankly,
Yeah,
I've been fine, because I don't live in Canada. My friends are, I'm quite old. My friends are quite old. I haven't, it's not really affected me personally, particularly at all.
I mean, for me, it's not been the disagreement so much that has caused a break with my friends. It's like pressure from their friends. Like, it's their desire to not have conflicts with other people who are pressuring them to stop being friends with me. It's either an issue that they don't really care about or they don't want to talk about that much. And I don't force that conversation on anyone like you, but I'll talk to people about it, but I'm not I actually don't talk about it that much in my personal life, I think, because I talk about it so much in my work that I'm like, I just want to talk about something else. So it's not like I'm going around to people being like banging on about this, but it's like they drop me because they have friends who don't really know me or don't know me very well, who've just determined that I'm a transphobic bigot and are like bullying them and being like, we're not going to be friends with you unless you cut Megan off, which I think is even more pathetic because it's not even their belief. It's not even, they don't think that about me. It's that they're being pushed and they're like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to be on the outs with our social in-group. And it's like, you guys are adults. Like, this isn't high school.
Yeah. I think it's quite different for you. I think it's Canada, and, you're a lot more well-known. And I think it's different circles. For me, I'm quite old, and most people are like men, women. We all know what they are. So I think this is one of the reasons why I was perfectly happy to talk on Twitter under my own name. I didn't really have a problem with it. I didn't think that I'd lose any friends over it. In fact, because it's completely rational stuff, man. It's not difficult. I mean, you could disagree with me. I mean, I disagree with lots of people on their stance on COVID and Brexit, but they're still my friends. We would have conversations around the dinner table on Brexit. But that's okay. They're still my friends. I still like them, despite disagreeing with them massively on that. And this has been the same. But I can see that for others, I think if I was younger, it would be completely different.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for women who are even younger than me, and especially, women who maybe don't have a big public platform and have nowhere to put their thoughts, and all that. When you're younger, your social circles matter to you a lot more than when you're older, which doesn't mean I don't need friends. I totally need friends. It's just that you sort of feel less like you have to go along with the crowd. Once you're older, you're obviously more confident and better at speaking your mind, or you should be in any case. But when you're younger, it's like the idea of getting ostracized by your social circle seems like the worst thing in the entire world. Yes. And then where do you turn? And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if everybody just talked about this and if everybody said what they actually thought about this, then there wouldn't be an issue, because everybody knows we're right. We are right. We're not saying anything wrong. Everyone knows the facts. Everyone knows what a male is and what a female is. Give me a break. This is not confusing or complicated. It's not even controversial. This is the most basic thing in the entire world. Nature, evolution. These are just the most basic facts that exist.
Yes. Yes, they are. It's incredible, isn't it, that we're sitting here in 2021 and we're having to say this, and we've talked about this for an hour and a quarter because there are people out there who will deny it. This is incredible.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. Okay, well, let's. I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk. I miss you, and I just want to tell everyone that Helen keeps trying to get me to move in with her. So maybe one day I will, when I'm allowed to travel to London again. Yes, although to be honest, I don't really ever want to leave Mexico. I'm really happy here. So I
well, that's nice. Well, maybe I'll just come and visit.
Yes, that's what I want. I want everyone to come visit me here. It's a really nice place to visit. Much better than
Excellent.
Canada.
Well,
But let's do
I'll be
this
there.
again.
Yes, totally. I've got free time now.
Perfect. Great. What a great bonus. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who donated. Subscribe to this channel. Supposedly that matters. There's a link to my Patreon down below in the show notes if you want to support my work. And this is The Same Drugs with Megan Murphy. I never remember what I'm supposed to say. When I watch other YouTube channels, it's like, man, they're good at that.
Yeah, they're so good. Like and subscribe. I think you have to say like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah,
but thank you for
thanks.
having me on. It's been great. I've really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself also. Okay, awesome. Bye everyone. Bye Helen.
Bye everyone.